Welcome to the Rev Mel Show on TSRnetwork.com, where real people talk about real kinky people. We're going to have a really great time tonight. I promise you that. I promise you that. Hey, listen. I rented this car over the weekend. I rented one of those little Fiat spiders. I mean, those not spiders, but one of the little Fiats. And it was really amazing because I got into the car and I really liked it, except when I pressed on the gas, I couldn't get it to do anything. I mean, how can I explain this? I pressed on the gas and it went into the different gears. And I was like, what the fuck? What's wrong with this car? What is wrong with this car? So what I did is I basically drove it home. And they had this little star thing, so I pulled it down. This little cross thing, I pulled it down, and it almost was like an automatic stick shift. And I know how to drive a stick, so I says, all right, we're gonna work with this. We are absolutely going to work with this. And so the next day I got in the car and I started driving, and I went over to my daughter's house. The same thing was happening. I says, well, I'm going to go over to the company where I rented the car from, because if there's a problem, I need to know if I'm not ruining the car. So what I did is I went over, they were closed. And then I got back in the car and I turned the car on and I put it into gear. And it ran perfect. Absolutely fucking perfect. The Fiats have, are you ready for this? They have the ability to do manual or auto gears. You can put it in automatic or you can do manual. So if you want to act like a hot rodder, all you gotta do is just make it into that, stick shift manual and go boom, boom, boom. And then if you want to do automatic, all you do is stick it in the automatic. I mean, I discovered that on my own, so I went back there today and returned the car. And I told them, I said, you need to tell people about this, because it's a good thing that I know a lot about driving a stick shift, and I know what it sounds like, because I could have fucked up that car. But I had a great time. I went to the beach. I met some unusual people. I always attract the most strangest people. I'm going to be editing a video. I videotaped this guy talking about cleaning the beaches, and he was like living on the beach, and he was like a hippie, and he had American flags all over the place, and it was absolutely crazy. I walked down these stairs. It was like going into a third world country. It was so bizarre. I felt like, oh my God, did I just transfer myself down in way, 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 way down in South America? I mean, it was absolutely bonkers and nuts. So I got a great interview there, and I'm going to put it up there, and he goes, I think it's going to go viral. People don't understand what viral is. They don't understand that everybody goes viral. And then Sunday, I had a great time. I went over to an event in Ventura, and I was a guest speaker, and it was absolutely so much fun. And I did a lecture on autistic. Okay, my guest is in the background. He can say it.
Authenticity.
And transparency. And I really enjoyed doing that class. It was awesome. But we have a lot of people that are watching the show right now. I mean, I can see the numbers. I don't know how many are in the chat room. If you are watching the show but you're not in the chat room, let me see. Right now we have River Butch. Woo 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 woo. Welcome, honey. Welcome. So River Butch is in the chat room, but there's a lot of people that are watching that are not in the chat room. Please go to TSRnetwork.com/watch live. Come in. The chat room is a pull-out chat room or pop-out. You can pop it out so you can watch it anywhere, the show anywhere, and float the chat room around. So come on in. People are watching the show. We can see we're going to have a full house tonight. I can see that. I tried to get the phone lines up tonight, and for some reason I could not. I will have that all worked out probably by tomorrow or next week. And I'm going to make sure that our phone number is still good for TSR Network. I don't remember if I paid for it anymore. It's a Skype number. I tried another thing and it didn't work. But I want to introduce my guest. My guest is from New York, and he does not have a New York accent. He is from Kingston, New York, in the United States. And he is a master, and he is, and I can't say the word founder either, he's a founder of educational incentive with BDSM Wiki. How's that called?
It's the BDSMwiki.info.
Woo!
It's kind of like the Wikipedia of BDSM is what I'm trying to push for.
So let me introduce him. Come on. Woo! We're so
Hello, hi everybody. I'm glad to be here. Thanks so much for having me on tonight, Rev Mel. And also welcome to all the audience out there. Um, I'm here tonight, I guess, to talk a little bit about the wiki. Was why you asked me on the show, right?
I asked you for many reasons because you
Mhm.
have such an intriguing profile. When I looked at your profile, I thought this is really interesting because he also has a fabulous website. He has a couple of really good websites, and I wanted to know more about you. And you're also an educator,
Mhm.
and you're mentor. You're a leather person, and you've also done fetish modeling, and also you are a pro male dom.
That's correct. Yeah.
So
Um,
that intrigued me.
Okay. Well, you're definitely right in that the being the male definitely has a thing with pro doming. It's a little bit more of a tougher gig to get clients, generally speaking, at least as far as I've been able to understand it. But it's something that it's a good passion for me. I was kind of actually thrust into that. I didn't really know or kind of want to get into it, but I ended up going out into a lot of dungeons, and people kind of started asking me, "Hey, can I have a private session with you sometime?" And eventually, after a while, the other pros in the area were kind of like, "So you're charging for that, right?" And I was like, "Am I supposed to?" And after a while, I was like, "Okay, well, yeah, no, I can do this." And some of the people in the community kind of took me under their wing and explained a little bit about how to do the pro thing and how it was a little bit different from more of the organic, having a life partner or something like that, because it's a whole different world, of course. And I was, yeah. So, but yeah, it's definitely a tougher gig. There's a different kind of audience, from what I'm to understand, being a male dom than there is for a female. Um, but yeah, it's enjoyable. I get a fair amount of clients that way, and it helps pay the bills, so that's always good. And I also do some other stuff too. You didn't mention. I don't know if it's not really kink related, but I do like music that's kind of appropriate for SM. I release records too, so I do that through
Maybe,
all the various
maybe
avenues.
do a song for TSR Network.
Yeah, if you want me to throw some beats together for you, I can definitely throw some music together for you.
Yeah, the
Um,
music I have is YouTube music because YouTube won't let you put music on if you don't own it, and
mhm,
if and they don't let you. And so, but that's YouTube music that I have on there, so I have that on there. But
mhm.
there's also somebody else in the chat room. There's Justin, welcome in the chat room, and I think there's quite a few more, but I don't see it until you guys start to type in. There is guest 132 is in the chat room, and so there's a few people coming in the chat room. There's a lot of people that are watching the show. If you're not if not in the chat room, come on in because we want to ask a lot of questions tonight. Because okay, since we're going to talk about all the things that you do, but I just want to know more about your pro dom. I
Oh,
have
sure. Do you have a specific question, or do you want to?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So do you do male and female pro doms, or you just do with women?
Primarily, actually, this is the thing. I happen to be heterosexual, but I primarily work with men as a pro dom. And I don't do any sexual services of any kind. So I actually lose quite a bit of business that way. But at the same time, most of the people I get are men, and a lot of it actually. I do get a couple of new women every once in a while. They're brand new. They would rather. Some of them have a lot of good sense to go see a pro to start out with, which isn't a guarantee. I mean, there's obviously various different levels of pros and different technical expertise there, but it's a good idea to do that over, say, meet a random stranger at a coffee house and then go back to a hotel with them. There's a little bit more. Well, I would say there's usually more. They'll
You
at
saw
least
the
have.
shake in my head.
What's that?
You saw the shake in my head,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no, don't do that, right?
Oh, I've done it. I've done it. I've done
Yep.
it.
Well,
I've
you're not guaranteed to have a bad experience with that, but the chances of it are kind of exponentially larger.
yes. Yeah.
And and so yeah, I get a couple of those once in a while, and a lot of like newer folk with the females. With the men, a lot of times what I get is either they have a public situation where they can't actually go to a club, You know, they might be a doctor or a lawyer or a TV personality or something like that, and they can't actually, you know, or maybe they're married and they don't want their wife to know or something like that. And you know, they feel better going to a man because they feel like it's not cheating if it's not sexual. And then another thing is that I get a lot of is you get a lot of men that are struggling with their sexuality, whether they might be maybe trans in denial or gay in denial, and a lot of the times that they'll want to kind of like experiment with that, see if it's something that they can actually go through with. And you know, that's actually a pretty large percentage actually of the market that I deal with is people that are kind of discovering that aspects for themselves, especially some of the older men where that was really just not socially acceptable for them. You know, and they have to be in hiding and they can't even be out to themselves, let alone the rest of the community and their families and things like that. You know, so I try to work with people and help them kind of overcome I want to say what, you know, a lot of us, we call it the guilt. You know, it's actually kind of it's referred to as a paraphilia. BDSM itself is no longer, thankfully, classified as an insanity anymore, but we still have paraphilia, which is a real thing, which is where people have either guilt or repression or something that negatively affects their life associated, usually because they haven't done the internal work to really embrace these things. And I like to take a lot of pride in being able to help people get to that point in their life where they can say, I am okay with this, and I'm very happy with myself as a person. And you know, and that's I want to say the vast majority of the kind of the work that I do, and help people kind of discover themselves that way, which isn't, I didn't plan for that. I just started out because I got a good reputation with doing various different toys and tools. And you know, and when I perform live out at dungeons and stuff like that, people usually, you know, they'll gather around and be like, "Ooh, that's neat." And you know, but the result of being able to affect people's lives, that's probably the most rewarding and also the biggest part of what I do professionally with doming. And of course, not everybody I work with is a pro client too, because some people, you know, they're old friends or just random casual play partners, things of that nature. So there's that too. You know, there's that aspect.
What was it like when I mean, being a heterosexual,
Yep.
what was it like to play with a man for the very first time?
I was freaked out and nervous the first time. I was like, am I gay? Is this weird? But I have a really interesting story about that, actually, to help with that. I was actually somewhat comfortable with it because I had an experience a long time ago when I was younger. I used to secretly wish that I was bisexual because I love sex. I'm a big fan. Yeah, and I thought, you know, well, if I'm okay with both genders, then double the sex, right? You know, and I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
More dates on the weekends.
Exactly, yeah. And but it turned out one night, and I'm not going to go into too much of you know, when I was younger, I partied a lot more. And one night I woke up, it was probably 10 o'clock, and I'd just gotten out of bed because that's how my life was at that point. And I woke up, and there was these two really hot girls in my kitchen, and I had no idea how they got there, and they were doing shots. And I didn't have my glasses on, and you know, and I went over to get some coffee. And like I said, I secretly hoped I was bisexual, but I was never attracted to men. But I kept that secret hope there that maybe, you know, one day I'll be attracted to a man. You know, maybe there'll be something about them, and I can find men handsome. You know, like George Clooney or Brad Pitt or whatever. They're all very handsome guys, but there's no sexual attraction there. You know, so you know, I was comfortable with myself, but I was kind of hoping that maybe I might be. And anyway, so I had these two girls in my kitchen, and they're doing shots, and I'm getting some coffee, not really knowing how they got there, but I wasn't really questioning it because two hot women in my kitchen, and my house was kind of that way at that time, and didn't know how they got there. And so I was like, you know, I got some coffee, and I'm just waking up. And they're like, so, hey, you want a blowjob? And I was like, hell yeah, you know. And I think it was maybe 24 at the time. Anyway, so, you know, a free blowjob when I first wake up in the morning. They were speaking my language. And you know, and so, you know, they gave me some oral sex and such, and they had their titties hanging out. We were having a good time. And then I found out that they had penises. And I was very much not expecting that. And but even so, I had a lot of transgendered friends, and I guess it just didn't occur to me because I just woke up and I didn't have my glasses on. And I never really thought before to check to see how big somebody's hands were or if they had an Adam's apple, and it didn't really occur to me. And come to find out, yeah, they were identified as female but had male sex organs. And but I instantly lost my heart on, and I was unable to perform. And I was like, I guess that kind of settles it, because if I find somebody sexually attractive, but if they have a penis, I'm not, that kind of does it, So I felt, bad about that situation. I took them out to Denny's because I felt like, like I had to do something, like, I kind of spoiled their evening, and I felt bad about it. But we hung out, and we're still friends to this day, so that's a good situation. But anyway, the first time I played with a man, now that I've gotten to that point, it was a little weird for me because, it rose up, that question, is there any sexual attraction here? But after I did it, I was fine. I was like, this is more of a professional thing. I'm doing this for reasons that aren't for sexual gratification. And anybody that does any kind of sex work or any kind of pro-doming, I think, tends to be able to realize that there are times where you do separate your professional self from your pleasure self. And there are times where you're doing things that, you might not be the most fun, but that's your job, and that's what you're there to do. And and quite frankly, maybe I might not be getting as much out of that experience as they are, but I'm able to have that. What's the word that they use all the time in polyamory for experiencing someone else's pleasure? I can't remember what it's called. I just lost it. I'm having a brain fart right now.
That room knows what that phrase is. Please type it in.
Yeah, I know there's a specific phrase for it. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. And it's used specifically, generally in polyamory, but the idea is that you take pleasure in somebody else's happiness, which is kind of a key fundamental to a lot of polyamory. And I'm sorry?
Are you poly?
Oh, yes, very polyamorous. I'm very, very happy with that state of my life. There's a whole story behind that, too, which is great. And I'll be happy to share that in a minute. But the idea was that, when I started playing with men, I was able to enjoy what they were enjoying, It wasn't so much, okay, I'm not physically turned on by this, but I'm so glad for their experience.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad that they're enjoying their submission and their various different forms of enjoyment of SM, and, and really kind of being able to help people feel guilt-free, okay with, and safe in their SM practices was a big thing for me. Especially since, some of the play that I do, I won't lie, is very niche. It's very rough, depending on the client, of course. And it's not the type of thing that you would even do in a dungeon because it's just not appropriate. That said, I don't mind doing things like that because I do study up on the safety of these things and talk with a lot of people with a lot of experience and find out about these different kinds of niche things. But at the same time, I mean, to be able to have that level of trust even is kind of its own little high with me. That gives me some excitement, not on a sexual level, but on, I guess, for anybody that identifies with the master type or the D type in general, you get that rush of power, and that's present for me for either gender because it's not about sexuality; it's about power in that case.
How does your BDSM community embrace the fact that you are a male pro dom?
They're happy with it. It seems. I get people calling me up a couple weeks in advance. Hey, do you have time this week? Can we do this? Yeah, I know you're doing this event. Can I meet you there? I even have events that I'm traveling for where people are, they ask ahead of time. And, when I do any kind of event, I always make sure I'm not doing any professional as in exchange for tribute kinds of services. It's all pro bono, but that's why I'm there, too, is also for the reputation that comes with that, the enjoyment that I get out of it, and also just to socialize, So the community itself seems to embrace me just fine. As a whole, it's like any community, though. You have a situation where, there's this one gossips about that one, and some people are difficult to deal with, but other people are great. And I want to say the vast majority of people are really supportive. Mm-hmm. And that's, but, just because people are kinky doesn't mean that they're great-natured or that they're the best people in the world. They tend to be more open about sexuality, but they're not necessarily so.
Sometimes they don't think out of the box. Sometimes, they want it one way, and when you expose them to something else, something totally different, they are like, wait a minute, this is not what we signed up for, and this is not what we do, and it's something that we can't participate in or even support. So I find that, I don't think we're very much different than even, I hate to say this, than the vanilla world. We all have certain things that we like and certain things that we don't like to do. And sometimes, we can be a little critical of things that we don't understand. So how old were you when you got involved in BDSM, and what was your first experience?
Well, I guess I'll kind of go over a little bit of the earlier portion of my life, which was I was always a little bit kinky, in the respect that I always thought sex was awesome, and I had no problem spanking girls or holding them down during sex. But I didn't really come to explore it until later, at least more of the SM aspect of it. When I was 21, I remember I went to my first goth club, and I was always a goth kid. I was into wearing chains and leather, but it was more for the fashion. I didn't really understand that the reason people wore that stuff. I didn't get it, but I was young and nobody told me, so but I always thought it was cool, and I was into that, at least to start with, when I was young, and I think that's where I was, and I'm comfortable with that. And I don't devalue anybody that is at that stage. I try to explain, to people that, they don't necessarily know that the people in The Cure wore eyeliner because they were kinky, or that Rob Halford was a gay leather master, and, they don't really get all of this stuff when they're into the music and the fashion aspect of it. But, I try to talk about that with people if they don't know, and put it on the table, see if they like it. If not, and, if they do, then great. And if not, that's cool too. Because I wasn't there right away. But I went to my first goth club when I was 21. It was in Boston. I think it was called The Church or something at that time. So I went in there. I was so excited because they were going to be playing music that I liked. And this is pre-internet era, so you couldn't just listen to whatever you wanted whenever you wanted, and there wasn't free downloads of music everywhere, and there wasn't all this stuff that we have today. Like, you actually had to go and drive 2 hours to listen to the goth industrial music and see the people that and a lot of it is still that way in the United States in certain remote areas, but it's a lot different on, say, the East and West Coast for the most part. We have clubs everywhere now. We have the internet chat rooms. We have all this stuff that wasn't there. And so anyway, I went to this goth club, and I was just expecting dancing and music and some drinks, but they had a St. Andrew's cross there, and there was this girl strapped to the table, and they were dripping wax on her, and I was like, why would she do that? That looks like it would hurt. And, and I didn't really get it, and it took a little while to figure it out, but it was because of the fact that I was like, wait, I'm not into pain. I'd rather be the one dripping the wax. But, so it took some time to get that figured out. And I started doing some kinky stuff in private. I didn't take my first sub on until years later, my first slave on until years after that. I wasn't really part of the public community, per se, until a really life-changing thing happened to me. And it's because I was a serial monogamist, because it's kind of what I was told to be growing up. You have to have a white picket fence and a wife and 2.5 children and all of this other stuff that I was brainwashed to believe. And even though I was very counterculture, I still thought that was supposed to be the way that it was. I never actually broke through and figured that out, let alone, really embraced, my dominant nature. I kind of toyed with it, but it was so backwards. I still had all that backwards thinking that comes with not embracing that side of yourself. Like, well, it's okay to give them a light spank, but you can't hit them, with a flogger, because that's, abuse. And I didn't have that stuff worked out in my head yet. But I ended up, I was engaged to this one girl at one point. It's the only engagement I ever had. She ended up wanting me to top her, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm scared. I'm nervous. So I went on and I got a mentor, and I contacted somebody that she knew that was into this sort of stuff, these weird, crazy, kinky people. And he was known. He used to have a house that he ran with like 6 or 7 slaves and such. And, he's not a, a really world famous dom or anything like that, but he was known in the community. And, so I went and I talked with him, and he gave me some very, very basic minimal instruction. This is a paddle. This is where you're supposed to use it. Don't swing it too hard. Try this. Experiment that way. And he threw, I think, Screw the Roses at me, and, a couple other pieces of literature that are very newbie-oriented, designed to help people have the answers to the questions. And I honestly, this was part of the reason I created the wiki, was because of how much difficulty I had getting involved, because I felt like I had to sift through books upon books of information and go to meeting after meeting after meeting. Anyway, so it was a really arduous process, and the worst of it was getting online and talking to people online, because I'll tell you that some of the people online are some of the most brutal that you'll encounter if you're a newbie. What's that?
I know.
Yeah. And anyway, so I was with this girl, and she ended up breaking it off, and part of it was, you know, she had her own issues, and I honestly wasn't very good at what I was doing, and I didn't mind, you know, it was actually a really good thing afterwards, because I was so frustrated at that point. I was like, I'm trying so hard to do this stuff and be this guy that I'm supposed to be, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to stop doing all that. I'm going to stop trying to be this 2.5 kids white picket fence guy, and I'm just going to say yes to the good opportunities that come my way, and yes to the things that make me happy. And if they don't make me happy, or they start making me not happy, I'm just going to start to veer my course in a different direction and see where life leads me. And within the first week of making that commitment to myself, I had 4 really hot, kinky women that approached me and said, will you play with me? And I was like, So anyway, I called up my old mentor, and I was like, I need help, because I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you please? And he's like, it sounds like you're ready to learn now. And I was like, yeah, I'm really ready now. I just need to figure this out. And that was kind of where I broke into the whole polyamory thing. And I was just like, wait a minute. If I talk about this with them, and they're okay with it, and then I'm okay with it, then what's the problem? And that's really what it was. It just came down to the old, tired refrain of open, honest communication and transparency, and focusing on that and developing it as a skill set. And once I did that, my life changed so drastically. And I made a lot of really great friends in the community. I started mentoring shortly thereafter, because I actually just jumped and dived on it. And while I wasn't in the public scene for very long at that point, I had already been kind of priming myself for that my whole life. And once I figured out what was going on and I got some good information, I took it, ran with it, and you know, I refer to myself as a student master. You know, I'm constantly trying to learn and refine my craft and get better, always taking workshops. Even if I might know that skill, getting it from a different presenter offers me different perspectives, different techniques, different information. You know, and that was kind of how I really got into the whole kink thing, the polyamory thing. It all really came all at once, the master-slave thing. All of it kind of just within the period of about 6 months became a big part of my life. And over the course of the next 2 years was just, you know, getting more and more involved in the kink community, and, you know, starting up the wiki and doing other things of that nature. And I really just kind of redirected my entire life towards that, because it's been such a drastically wonderful change for me.
Well, we have, I could not get my chat room to work on my side, so I didn't realize that there were so many people in the chat room.
Okay.
I started going, oh no! So I want to put a shout out to some of the people that have come in. Bluefield 5 has come into the chat room.
Hey, he's a friend of mine.
Matt Apple has come into the chat room. Guest 649, we'll just call you 649. Oh, hi, honey. It's Shalegra, I can't say that word. She's a friend of mine. I think that's my friend. Welcome. And River Butch, I've already said hello, and to Justin, hello. And so we have a lot more people that are watching the shows that are not in the chat room. Please come in. Calegra said, my first public play experience was at a goth club, at a gay club, about 3 years after I started living kinky full time. It's wild and quite a show for the first time. Funny how goth is such a gateway for many people. So it is.
Yeah, definitely. For me, it was.
And guest 649 says Rev Mel gets a cuppy. What's a cuppy? Is that boobies?
I hope so.
I don't know. What's a cuppy? I want to know what a cuppy is. Guest 649 says you make the space safe to share and let go. Yep, that's what people need to do. One question for you, okay? And the question is from Bluefield 5. What is the worst experience you had when you were poly?
Worst experience with poly? I would actually, that's a tough question, because all of my bad sexual experiences, well, not all of them, I'm sorry. most of my bad sexual experiences came from being monogamous. I was struggling and fighting against the grain with that. I thought I was supposed to be monogamous, and it was horrendous. I've only had a handful of not good poly experiences, and it was stuff where there was no real way to prevent it. For example, I had a date with one person one time, and when they met up, and they're like, "So, can we go back to your place?" And I was like, "Sure, this is okay as long as you know the informed, consent and that sort of a thing." And we went through the negotiations and that whole rigmarole. And then the next time I saw her, she wanted to be my boyfriend, or a girlfriend rather. She wanted me to be her boyfriend, and I was like, I don't really do that, and I'm sorry if you got that indication. I already have. I told you ahead of time I had 3 other partners, and that I'm very comfortable with them. If you're interested in finding out more about that, we can talk about it. And she didn't really take very kindly to that and got upset about it. I went through every opportunity to try, but it was one of those things where it didn't matter what I said, she just wasn't ready to hear it. And, it was tough for me to identify that too, because she was poly herself and also involved in kink. So I kind of assumed a lot of this stuff, I took a little bit of it for granted, I think, that she should know all of these things and be comfortable with them. And but that's I learned something from that experience, so I don't even look at it as a bad thing, as a learning experience. And that was very early in my poly experience. I feel actually kind of blessed, because I've heard a lot of really horrific poly stories out of people when they experiment with that. Mine went really smooth.
Mine was not very pleasant. A couple of my polys have not been very pleasant, but I think I have to contribute a lot to that too. Take that responsibility, because sometimes you have to. You got to take responsibility. So I want to ask the chat room some questions. Do you guys want me to, especially River Butch knows these things. So
Okay.
You want me to ask him the questions? The questions that I always ask my guests? It's going to take them a couple minutes because there's a little bit of delay. And I know she's going to say, hell yes. Okay, you guys ready? And this is going to go by really, really smoothly and quickly. But these are very important questions. And we have quite a few people that are coming in and out of the... I think a lot of people are coming in on their cell phone, and they don't know where the chat room is. If you're on your cell phone or your iPad, scroll down. Just keep on scrolling to get to the chat room, okay? Because it doesn't come up on the big thing. So... Master KAOS.
Yes.
How big is your cock?
My kick, is roughly 7.5 to 8 inches, depending upon arousal level. I actually used to. I'm told that's fairly above average.
Oh, yeah, nice.
But I was actually really. I had a complex about it when I was like 13, because all I'd seen was like porn magazines. We didn't have the internet then, so I thought that all cocks were supposed to be 10 or 12 inches long, and men were all supposed to be rippling muscled, and I was like really self-conscious about it, and that I'm so glad not to be.
Well, that's still a good sized cock.
Yeah.
So, are you a shower or a grower?
Probably a mixture of both, I guess, depending upon the ambient temperature of the room. It's not tiny unless it's cold, but it's not the full 8, unless it's aroused. So, yeah.
Isn't it amazing? Women, when they get cold, their nipples get bigger. When they get cold. Yeah. And men, when they get cold, their cocks. They like the way I say it, cocks. Mm-hmm. Their cocks get smaller.
I found out why that is, actually. It's a built-in regulatory system within the testicles. The testicles need to be kept at a certain temperature in order to produce sperm. If it's too cold, they'll shrink back inside the body, so that this way, and the penis as well, so that this way they can be preserved at the proper temperature to make sure that you have live sperm to pass on your genetics. It's really weird.
Spunk.
What's that? Yeah, it's all about the spunk, really.
Spunk. Okay. Big balls or little balls?
That's a good question. I don't know. I never really compared my balls. I would say they're big enough. I guess they're not little. They're certainly. I wouldn't say they're like abnormally large. Like I remember recently I was at a dungeon. This guy had his nuts filled with saline. They were probably about this big. So, you know, they're not that big, but you know, I'd say, you know, good sized handful. You know, it's, you know, something to play with. You know.
Saggy or
Um, again, ambient temperature. You know, that's all about it. You know, if it's warmer, they'll be hanging lower. You know,
have you ever taken it
in the butt.
in the butt?
No, actually, I experimented with a finger once, and it really kind of it tweaked me out. I didn't like it, and I'm told that it's supposed to be, you know, this wonderful experience for men, that they're really into it, and then at least that's what I was told early on, and then I came to find out, yeah, it's not for everybody, you know. So that was kind of what it came down to, and it didn't do it for me. So nah, not really.
I
You know.
understand. You know, I sound like a porpoise when
Yeah.
something gets near there. I go, mm-mm,
Mm-mm.
mm-mm.
Yep.
So, when did you lose your virginity?
I actually did not have sex until the ripe old age of 17. I was very upset and disappointed about that because at 17 I knew everybody else on the planet was having sex except for me. I actually had a interesting story about that. When I was 17, I only lied to get sex once in my entire life, and I'm very proud of that fact. But I had to that one time. And I'd gotten blowjobs before that plenty of times. So, I mean, I'm not counting that because I feel like you have to have vaginal sex in order to lose your virginity, per se, as a male. That's just my grade of, you know, where I'm counting that. Other people might count it differently. That's fine. Um, so, yeah, there was this girl, and she was kind of, you know, she had a reputation back in those days. And anyway, she came on to me one night. I was a very handsome young man when I was back in those days. So anyway, she came on to me at one point, and I was just really sexually awkward at that time, really not good with sex at all. I had no experience. I was really freaked out about it, and just came off as really needy and wussy when I was a teenager. So I was really not good at getting laid, even though I should have been because I had every other reason to be. But that neediness, when you have a dominant type of personality, just automatically makes the female submissive people run away from you in terror. And took me a while to figure that out, but I finally figured it out later on in life. But anyway, point being, I wasn't really good at that time. And she's like, so how many women have you been with? You know, comes up, and I'm like, a lot. And she's like, well, you know, how many? And I was like, oh, like, you know, like 10. And I was like 17, so like that was a lot. And you know, at that time anyway. And she was actually nervous about having sex with me because I apparently had sex with all of these different women, even though she'd had sex with way more men, which was fine. You know, I was. But anyway, so I told her this, and come to find out, now during this time, it was also very ghetto. We were on the basement floor on a ratty old mattress, and my best friend was on another ratty old mattress. I want to say maybe, you know, 40 feet away. So he got to hear the whole thing and tried to sleep through it. And oddly enough, had sex for probably like 4 to 6 hours, to the point where she had to leave for college in the morning and like didn't get to sleep at all. But I didn't come, so I was like really upset about this, you know, because like I was like, you know, and she got to come plenty of times, to the point where I wore her out, and she was more than done. But, and you know, and she was like, all right, I gotta go, like seriously, time, you know. And I was like, all right. So but years later, my best friend's out drinking with her one night, and says, oh yeah, like that time Clock lost his virginity to you, or something like that. It came up in the conversation, and she goes, what? And because she had one rule, and only one rule, which was no virgins, and I totally bypassed that. And,
Oh, God.
yeah, and you know, looking back, I'm not proud of it, but at the same time, anyway. So what happens is, she gets so blackout drunk that night that she forgets why she got drunk to begin with. And 3 days later, she asks my friend again, why did I drink so hard? And he tells her, only this time she gets blackout drunk again, but still remembers the next time she wakes up that this is because she was so upset and distraught about this. So she calls me up after this experience, very reasonably upset, and says to me, you lied to me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And this is probably like 12 years after the fact. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you told me that you had sex with other women. And I'm like trying to figure this out in my head going, isn't that like most women don't really want to hear that you're banging other women? You know, like I'm trying to figure this out in my head and I'm like not really understanding. And I'm like, yeah, so sorry. And she's like, I only had one rule. And I'm like, she goes into this tirade and tells me all about it. And I was like, so you mean to tell me that I'm the only guy that ever lied to get into your pants? And like her jaw dropped to the floor. And she goes, I guess not. And I was like, so is it that big of a deal? And she's like, no. I was like, sorry if I messed you up. I just, you know, like I was like, I was 17 and desperate, and it was a really, you know. And she's like, yeah, I guess that's forgivable. And I was like, thanks. And then, so we're still friends now, and you know, and professional even we do some professional work back and forth. But this is a funny little story I enjoyed.
There's some more chat in the chat room. Ashley Rains has come in. Hello, baby. She came in when I was asking. She goes, I love that I came in at the how big is your cock? True Rev Mel form. Okay. Bluefield 5 says, well, I didn't know that. I guess we're talking about your cock. I'm not sure. Now let's see. Mad April says Southern Belle would like to tell you. Wait. First of all, Southern Belly can't get into the chat room for some reason. I don't know if you are on your cell phone or on your iPad or on a computer. There's got to be a way to get in. If you can't come in with maybe you're trying to get in with your name and you can't come in with a name, just go in as a guest and then just tell us who you are. And Charles Allegra, it's my friends Charles and Allegra. Love you guys. Allegra, hello. She is the hottest fetish star that's out there. She is beautiful.
She's wonderful. I happen to know them from the Master Slave Uncensored forum, and they're great people.
I love them. She used to rent an apartment from me for a
really?
Advantage, yeah. And our bathrooms shared the bathrooms together. So, and she's beautiful. I mean, that girl is absolutely incredibly beautiful. And Charles, I adore him. I adore. Okay. And Charles Allegra said, taking it in the butt makes your cock 10 to 12 inches. True facts. You know, River Butch says, busted. And then she goes, I think when I asked her if you want to talk about the cock, she goes, you know, laughing out loud. Let's see what else. Where was the one question? Southern Belle would like you to tell the Shambach story.
Ah. Southern Belle is a wonderful person. I can't say enough about her. She's my sister in leather. I love that girl very, very much. She started out as a mentee, and she lived quite a far distance away from me. And I find actually that there's disadvantages to mentoring with distance involved, but there's also advantages in that there's a lot more trust that can happen with personal information. Because a lot of times if you're mentoring people, especially as a male dom type and they're a submissive female type, there's always that worry of, you know, oh, is he going to try and have sex with me, or do I want to have sex with him, and then what happens, and, you know, all this other stuff. So there's a good advantage with that, and, you know, so we were able to get very comfortable and talk about a lot of things, and, you know, honestly, you know, I'll tell you, when I found her, she was in a very dark place. We were having a discussion about, you know, whether or not submission is a gift, that old gem, and
been going around forever.
Everybody's got an opinion, and you know, opinions. Anyway.
About that today.
What's that?
Just talked to my therapist about that today.
Yeah. Oh, you know, if submission's a gift, in my opinion, and so is dominance, because they're both work, and you both have to work towards something. And I tend to view it less as a gift and more as a mutual relationship between two people. I feel like a gift is something that you give to somebody, like a gas card, or, you know, a Christmas present or something like that. Like, you know, to me, it's not the same thing. There is a giving nature to both of them, you know, but they're not a gift per se, especially since a gift you give once and it's done, whereas dominance and submission is a perpetual thing. So anyway, that's my opinion on that. But
I have, you know, it's good to share opinions, and my opinion is, I think that is a gift, because I would never beat the shit out of myself.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Take the humiliation, and
Mhm.
I would never get on my hands and knees and wash someone's floor. Um, and when they do this for me, it's like, ooh.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
it's a girl thing,
mhm.
you know. Maybe it's a girl thing. But Don Javier is in the house. Hello, Don Javier. We have so many people that are watching. If you are not in this chat room, get in this chat room now.
So the Shambach story. Like I said, when I found Southern Belle, she was in a very a dark place in her life, and she honestly had been part of the scene without knowing it, without informed consent for a number of years. She had pretty much continuous subdrop, didn't know what aftercare was or even the term, and just basically went out to and lived her life in accordance to be able to find and meet this person that would give her very brutal sessions, no aftercare, no recompense afterwards, and it just left her in a constant state of drop. And she started describing this to me, and it was to the point where she had to medicate herself for this, to the point where she had to where she would sometimes fantasize about death and things of that nature, because she felt like just a bag of meat to get beat on. And had very little self-worth and things of that nature. I also, too, I want to mention, too, she asked me to tell this story also, and talked with me a little bit beforehand to see that, it was okay to talk about this stuff. So I want to make sure everybody knows there's consent involved with that. But she also, it was a really difficult time for her, and she didn't really know how to proceed. And I was like, this sounds like you're experiencing pretty much a perpetual state of drop, which is a massive endorphin crash. And I went into the technicals about, the medical stuff with that with her and how she could avoid it and how aftercare was a thing. And it turns out this guy, when she learned what aftercare was, wasn't willing to give it to her, and basically, kind of fit a lot of the profile of what a predator would look like in the scene. Anyway, so it took a while, but she eventually found a way to get out of that and break that cycle, and I helped coach her through a lot of that. Helped give her a lot of personal betterment programs to help get her started, and got her more involved in the community, got her to some local dungeons, munches, etc. And 2 years later, she's now making a lot more money. She has a wonderful sir that takes very good care of her. Her whole life is pretty much turned around. She's a much happier person. And she's just been doing, I don't even know how many things day in and day out to better herself constantly, and it's kind of just created this perpetual stream of positivity. And I think she gives me a little bit too much credit for how much change has happened in her life, because I helped give her the tools that she needed, and give her a little push, but the work really came down to her doing it for herself. And that was really the necessary thing, because if you change for somebody else, you're never going to really make that lasting change. And she did make those changes in her personality and how she deals with life and her attitude. And anyway, during the end of her period with that gentleman that I described before, not her current sir, but the gentleman that she was seeing prior for years, she bought a shambach. And as anybody that knows what a shambach is, it's a very large beating utensil for very intense impact scenes. It's not used lightly. It's the type of thing that I only break out for the clients that, one, have the skin thick enough to take it, and two, really like a lot of pain. And she'd bought this for him, but was actually afraid to give it to him because she thought of the amount of damage that it would do to her. And that she actually wouldn't be able to control herself, because she spaces really hard, like to the point where it's like trance-like almost in a snap. Especially if you wave a little bit of rope underneath her nose, she's gone. Like, she's very much a great little rope slut, apparently, from what I'm told. Anyway, so she bought this shambach, and after a while, she said to herself, she's like, I can't give this to this guy. And she started, but even making that decision was a big step for her, to be able to break out of that whole very much Stockholm type syndrome, like I have no control over this, uninformed consent kind of a thing. And when she did break away from that, she said, I'm not going to give this to him. I'm going to find somebody else that I can give it to. And she searched for people in the community, and everybody that she felt that would be able to handle that tool responsibly either already had one, or or wasn't capable of wielding it responsibly. It's a very powerful tool. You don't give it to, just anybody. And she approached me at one point, and I told her a million times over, don't accept gifts for mentoring. Don't accept gifts for mentoring. Don't accept gifts for mentoring. Professional services, sure, not for mentoring. Don't do it. And she kind of actually at a certain point kind of twisted my arm and and got me to accept it, and I felt really good about it. It was the first time I accepted a gift for that in that regard, because one, she had already paid for it, and it was sitting in her trunk, and she couldn't find anything to do with it, and it was also kind of there was a story behind it. There was a level of honor with her bestowing it upon me, and she sent it up with some cookies, and it was really wonderful. And honestly, I'm just so proud of her. I was talking to her earlier tonight. We keep in regular contact, and she's doing so amazing and so wonderful, and she's becoming more and more present in the community. And her sir actually is the one Matt Apple in the chat room there. And honestly, I couldn't be happier for her that she found such a wonderful guy. And I told her too, because that was one of her big things, is that she wanted to find somebody that was not only worthy of service, but she wanted to better herself so that she could attract somebody who was worthy to serve, and that kind of thing. So there was a lot of personal work on her end, and her whole life turned around drastically. But the Shambach was kind of the point where she kind of broke away out of her old habits, turned everything around. And like I said, this was going on for years, that she was in that situation that was very dark. And I think that hopefully anybody listening to the show today knows that there's a big difference between sadomasochism and abuse. And that was more, I'm not going to label anything, but in my opinion, that was more towards that scale of abuse. And because she had no idea what was happening, didn't know what was going on. And while she was consenting to it, it was without any sort of information or understanding of what was happening.
A lot of submissives that when they come into the lifestyle, that happens to them. They meet the first few doms that they meet. I mean, a lot of it has a tendency to be abuse, and they don't realize it. They think they're just doing a service.
There's a from the NCSF. There's a study they did that says that I think it's like 1 in 3 people during their first 10 years experiences a hard limit negotiation violation, which means that it's not a oh, I didn't like that during a scene. It's I said I didn't want this, and they did it anyway. What's that?
I'm so glad I'm a dominant.
Yeah. Well, dominants have consent violations too. I've definitely had them. Where people try and do things after the fact or during the scene that I've told them is not okay. And but there is an advantage as a dominant that you can then immediately cut things and be like, nope. But even then, I know with a lot of professional female domies, they'll carry tasers with them because there's experiences that they've had, that are very, dangerous with some clients. Anyway, but to get back on track though, the Shambach story was really her kind of coming into her own and kind of figuring things out and becoming a really good pillar of the community that she's involved with. And she's pretty well known, from what I'm to understand, at Impact out of Memphis, which you're probably familiar with EM. He's on Kinky and Popular all the time. He's the big rope guy there. Yeah, she's been doing great since then. But to get back to your question about the consent violations, I find that the sad state of affairs is that if you are a young female submissive, you're kind of, not because of the fact that it's necessarily that way, but a lot of them are going to experience a consent violation when they first start out, and a lot of it's because they're too trusting. They don't know how to read any sort of red flags. They don't know how to speak up for themselves or communicate. They don't have those skills, and the only way to get them is to actually have somebody that you can trust to begin with to help walk into the lifestyle, and also that they remain trustworthy, because a lot of people will seem that way and not be.
I agree with you, and I just mentored someone, not mentored them, they were under my protection for 8 months, and because she was getting over a really bad abusive relationship, and she met someone else who has some of the same characteristics as the other person, and she didn't confer with me, and the dominant did not acknowledge the fact that he was underneath protection. So a leader in our community, and so when I approached the dominant, I says, you needed to talk to me about this, and I asked her if she had if she was beholding to anybody, and she said no, and I said to her, but when you found out, why didn't you come to me? Why why don't you sit down and talk to me about this? She's been underneath my protection. So that's a real big issue with me. But people in the chat room are talking. We have Entropy has come in the chat room. Welcome, Entropy. He's a very wonderful flogger maker, wonderful performance artist. Let's see. Javier says he loves Shambox. He wants to use it on me. I don't think so. Charles Allegra says, I find drop to be a bigger issue when intimate, kinky partners live apart. And Javier says, I agree. Mad Apple says, gentlemen, we use the term very, very loosely, gentlemen. Okay. Ashley says, yeah, aftercare is more than a rubbing alcohol and a bandage. And then it goes on and on and on. And Charles Callegra says, my speculation is that it happens because of after sharing the intense experience, the people are intended to bond very strongly. When the person you share this experience isn't there to bond with, maybe too deeply DS feelings during mellow day-to-day experiences, a person feels intensely lost and empty and alone. Live together, and that can be avoided. Living together can avoid that. And Javier's still saying he wants to beat me. Mad Apple says she makes herself better every day, and thus it makes me better. We both owe you more than we can ever repay. So
thanks, guys.
Yeah, there's so many people that are watching that are not in the chat room. You guys are missing the fun in the chat room. And are you guys having a good time in the chat room? Are you having a great time watching the show? I hope so. I hope so. So let's show your website. We don't have. Okay, I'm going to ask him a question. You want to go a little bit longer? Because we've already gone an hour.
Oh, I would love to. I have a bunch of stuff I wanted to talk about we didn't even get to yet, if that's okay.
Yeah, why don't we show your website?
Okay.
And we'll show both of your websites. We'll show your Master KAOS website.
Okay.
We'll show that first. We'll go through it really lightly and really fast. We're probably going to go another 15 minutes or so, or whatever, and we'll talk more. But let me get to the website. Okay, here we go. Ready? Oop. Okay, I'm going to take a hold of the camera for I can control it. All right, because I want to have only me on the screen at the moment. We can talk. So this is your website. So tell me a little bit about it.
There I kind of just, that's more or less for any professional clients or any people that are potentially seeking me to do either classes or private sessions or even private classes. You know, a lot of couples sometimes will say, oh, can you help me, teach me how to, work with my wife and top her and things like that. And, various different things of that nature. So it gives them basic information and outlines as to a lot of the skill sets I have, and I do quite a lot of different things. If anybody was looking to book me for anything, or or to set up a session with me or anything like that, all that information is there. And it gives me quite, there's some pictures and stuff, and it's laid out. A lot of it's redundant for people that are on FetLife, but not everybody is, for various different reasons. It helps direct people that I don't necessarily want to be socializing with on FetLife, to give them my professional credentials and things like that as well. But yeah, it's a basic website layout for those purposes, and kind of gives a little bit of information, like I said, about what I do and what I offer. And the website, will tell the name of it and how they can reach it? That's Master KAOS. That's MasterKAOS, not CHAOS. KAOS, online, ONLINE.com. So MasterKAOSonline.com. And that's, go ahead. You want to go to the next site? Sure. Do that. I'm going to bring it up. Hold on. There we are. Okay. It's not as, what is this site? This is, what is the concept behind the site? Okay, the BDSM Wiki, to give you guys a little bit of information, was created where I had a lot of frustration coming into the lifestyle, learning a lot of things, and especially a lot of the forums and such can be pretty brutal to somebody who's new, that identifies as an M-type, that has a lot of questions that are basically newbie questions. And what I've done is I've taken the time out with, I've interviewed a lot of sources, had the privilege to learn underneath a lot of very notable masters. I've had a lot of classes that I've taken, And what I've done is be able to not necessarily give people hands-on training, but to give them basic safety information, organize it in a very thoroughly well-written and technical information-based cross-indexed format, just like any other wiki, like a Wikipedia. Eventually, we want to be doing video tutorials for various different things. That's going to be on the list of things that we do. And we have a lot of different stuff that we kind of show and teach through that. A lot of the programmers have been really helpful and generous with donating their time. We have a BDSM 101 section, which is designed to help people kind of get acclimated, give them some very basic day one information. All those articles there are really helpful for that. There's also an FAQ, which is more for people that are coming in and maybe they know a little bit, but they have lots of questions. And I want to say I spent about 6 months answering questions inside the newcomer FAQ areas and studying a lot of what the people said there and put this together, so this way anybody that has a question that's really new can kind of come here and answer that. And this is one of the most powerful things about this, is that the FAQ has been helped a lot of people in that. I found out recently, this wasn't something I planned for, but people have used the FAQ section to be able to come out to their families as either gay or part of SM or part of the community at large, and any kind of pride community. They've been able to use these resources in the FAQ to help their family, to help explain to their families what's going on. And that was a side effect I didn't even really think about, was that, I figured only people that were looking to learn would find this, but it can also educate people that are kind of on the fringe. And that's a really big thing for helping BDSM rights become a thing, as far as I'm concerned, because that's how it spreads, is people, talking about it and having a relative or a friend that's interested in this and is okay with talking about it and is able to give them knowledgeable answers and information. And that FAQ has done a lot of good for a lot of people in that regard. And then I recently added that store that you were kind of peeking at before. That's more or less... What's that?
I can get back to that.
Oh, sure. The store is there for... it's got a lot of cross-index stuff. It's an Amazon store. We're not looking to get rich off of it. I think we get like a 1 to 2% commission off of anything that's bought there. But the idea is that it shows a lot of the different stuff that can be purchasable, which is a big thing for new people. They don't necessarily know what else is out there besides floggers and ball gags, if they even know what those are sometimes. And also helps specialty, things such as we're looking to carry some really good fire products soon. I have a really great vendor that's a friend of mine that we're going to be hopefully carrying their stuff pretty soon. And kind of have all of this stuff in one place. And unlike a traditional SM store, we're not just carrying ball gags and floggers. We're also carrying, like the page run right there is the aftercare page, where we have kits for people to actually find stuff for aftercare. And even if it's not bought here, it at least gives people the education of what is a good thing to have on hand. Not just for aftercare, but there's also a section for dungeon monitors. There's also a section for boot blacking. Other things that you're just not seeing on a lot of other SM stores. And it kind of puts it all in one spot, and it shows people, like with the boot blacking area, we carry products that are highly recommended by the boot blacking community, like Hubert's and such. And there's all sorts of recommended resources there for books and things like that if you really want to get intense. Because one of the things that I didn't want to do was recreate what's already out there with the wiki and just give a line-by-line definition. Because honestly, there's no one correct way to polish a boot. There's no one correct way to flog. There's no one correct way to do any of these things. We know that there's a wrong way, which is if somebody ends up dead in the hospital. But outside of that, there's no one right way. And linking to reputable sources and carrying those products also helps other people that are professionals in the community as well. And also helps me kind of tip my hat to a lot of the people that have been very influential to me over that course and process.
Wonderful. We've got some more chat questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
Woo woo! We jumped from one thing to another. We got a lot of stuff to cover. So we've gotten guests. 870 has come into the chat room. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We've got quite a few people that are watching the show. Please come in the chat room. Let me go down some of the list, some of the things that people are saying. I'm looking at these really quickly. We're talking about consent. Justin says we have to remember that dom space is as intoxicating as subspace. It's really good.
Yeah, they're both driven by the same hormones inside the human body. It's just that it tends to be, in my experience, that the subs usually experience it a little bit more potently because they're having physical things happening to them. And they have the adrenaline that we have, but we have less of the endorphin high usually. They're usually experiencing more endorphins, especially with some of the. But everybody's different too. I mean, some people. I've seen people faint because they got a needle in them, not because they had that condition, but because they got too high on endorphins. You know, and I've seen other people, take 100 needles and they're completely cogent. And same thing with impact and things like that. Some people get really spaced out. Other people, they could stand there and take it all day. Really depends.
Yeah, I like to go in my dom space.
Yeah, I do too. I'm really into that. That's a big reward for me.
There's a lot of conversation going on in here. I'm going to try to go through some of it really quickly because I respect everyone that has come into the chat room that's taken their time to participate. I think that it's wonderful. It's great for our community to share our experiences with each other and to have questions and to have statements answered. Let's see if we can get through some of this really, really quickly. Charles Allegra says, I find that dissatisfaction, misunderstanding, and consent issues are far more likely between two people who know each other less well. Casual play, while convenient, happens between people who may not have known each other for a long time. I agree with that. Do you agree with that?
I'm 100% on board with that. Your chances are exponentially increased the less relationship you have with somebody.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Javier says a lot of the problems happens when people don't spend enough time reflecting on what they want and what they can offer. This creates problems in communication from the get-go. To thy own be true. I agree with that. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. That's you gotta be in touch with yourself in order to do this stuff.
And Bluefield 5 says, I'm scared to even being with a dom or a sub because I feel like there's a lot more trust to gain before doing any scene with them. Being in a regular relationship, really. I don't know if I said that right. I mean, I tried to read it as correctly as I could.
Mm-hmm.
I think we got the gist of it.
Mm-hmm.
Charles Glegora says, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want, and I don't know what you want. How is this not a recipe for disaster? I like that. I like that.
Very true. Charles Allegra is pretty great for putting out lots of gems of wisdom every so often. Taught me actually about a couple years ago about some really great stuff concerning owning your own statements and speaking assertively, which really helped do wonders for me as far as the online community, because a lot of people will get very quickly offended if you say you or they or whatever, but if you own your statement and say me, I, it changes the whole ball game, and now they can't really argue with it because it's your opinion and your feelings.
Well, from being in the lifestyle for over 20 years and from experiencing when we did not have this, I mean, I'm from the AOL chat room, where we started like the Lear Assad in Los Angeles, and we were all a huge community together, and we've grown. But I have seen a major, major change in our community, over the last 10 years, ever since we've gotten involved with so much of the internet process of our lifestyle. And I think that we have lost a lot of our compassion toward other people.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, the whole thing with the personal connection is what all of this is all about. It's not about the tools. It's not about whether or not you kneel. It's not about any of those things. It's all about the connection you have. And with the increased computerization of the culture of America as a whole, let alone the BDSM community, it creates a situation where you can be sitting next to somebody on a couch and be completely ignoring them for hours on end, if that's how you choose to live your life, and be completely disconnected from them. And I think that's incredibly dangerous for the BDSM community, and that's why it's so important that we support the local venues, like Laird Assad, and also the events, and be able to connect with people. And I find that if you're doing those things, for me, I shut my phone off when I go in. I don't want to look at the internet. I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to be present in the moment and actually experience what I'm there to experience. I mean, I couldn't even imagine somebody doing a scene and then like stopping and be like, "Hold on, let me text somebody." Like, what? You know?
What I like about the leader, they don't allow you to have any of your cell phones on in any of the playrooms, in even the social gathering area.
A
I
lot of
mean,
places are like that.
have to be present. And
Mhm.
but it's what happens during the week. It's what happens. I talked about this yesterday in my lecture, that we have become, I don't know if you'll agree with me, I don't know if the chat room will agree with me either, we have become a pack mentality.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Where the strongest are the leaders and everyone else follows. And when the strongest say this is the way you need to do things, then you have to do them. And I am such a person that thinks out of the box. I'm not a normal person. I've never been a normal person in my thinking. And I find that when people follow the pack, that they do some pretty horrendous things to our community.
Yeah. Community leaders are not immune to being wrong or even completely out of line. There's definitely experiences that I'm sure everybody's had or knows of or has heard about or has even partaken in. And, you know, that's a key thing to remember, is that just because somebody's been doing this for 20 years, they do not know everything. They do not have all of the answers. They might know a thing or two more than somebody who's brand new on the scene, but you know, it's being present and being connected and showing respect to other people is absolutely key. And like you said before too, I think we were talking before the show, it's about being authentic and not just being transparent by saying the words, but actually coming out and saying, this is who I am, and living it. And that's a key fundamental that I can't stress enough. You know, and you know, you can have all the techniques in the world. You can be great at, you know, XYZ type of tool. That doesn't make you a capable dominant or submissive. You know, what makes you good at those things is, again, the same old thing. You got to communicate, and the better communicator you are, the better you will be able to build trust with your partners. The better you will be able to develop connections with your partners is through that communication. And as you build those connections, as you build those reputations, as you build those respects and honors that grow around you, that's when you're actually going to go somewhere and become something that, not in the community, but for yourself, and become, you know, happy with your life. And because even trusting in the community too much is, you know, like we've talked about before, is that it's not all about the community. It's more about being present and being your authentic self. And it's great to be able to communicate with people in the community. It's great to be able to connect with them, but it's not just that. It's about you, the individual, you know. And I find that that's the most important thing to keep in mind, is that we're not here just to, you know, see who is the biggest, baddest dom, or who's the best at serving water, or who's the best at this or that. It's about really connecting with people. And when we forget that, when we make it a contest, when we argue over what the right way to do something is, we really lose sight of the point that there isn't a right way. There's no one true way, but more a what's good for you, you know.
I agree with you 100%. I have to clarify something in the chat room, though. Bluefield 5, you don't have piss poor grammar. I am severely dyslexic. I sometimes read things really wrong. I always take responsibility for everything that I do in life, and it's really hard to do. It's fucking hard to do. So I have the worst piss poor grammar that there is on the face of the earth. So I want you to know that, you know, it may not be what you have written. It may have been how I have seen it and how I have read it. So, you know, my heart goes out to you. I do understand. Javier has said goodbye. He says, I got to go for now. He says, thank you for having, he says, have a great week. Thank you for having another great guest. River Butch says, I need to drop you a line on FetLife. She goes, night, darling, because she's in New York. She's on your side. So it's there. So they're on your side. Justin asked, Rev, do you have your shoes on? No, I don't have any shoes on, and I have no underpants on. Are you like that? Is that what you wanted to hear?
I wanted to hear it.
You missed it, because we were setting up the show, and he was, he was in the green room, and I'm running around the place, and my dress gets stuck in between my legs. I have to kind of pull it out, and I turned around to see if he was looking, and I couldn't catch if he was, so I ran out of the room, and then when I came back, I said, "So you got to see my butt, right?"
Sadly, I didn't. I missed it. I was shutting off the air conditioning, and but maybe some other time.
Ashley Raines has said, as a professional and a lifestyle player, I find that my clients definitely do not have the type of home life that they would lead itself to the intensity or the time that is required in a DS relationship. Their spouses, family, or friends would not or could not understand and accept the part of them. They come to me not by choice but by necessary. I like that.
Yeah, that's a big, like I said, that's a big part of the clientele that I deal with is people that can't go to munches, people that can't go to dungeons, people that can't go out to those things for various different reasons. I 100% agree and kind of mimic that a lot in my business as well.
Yeah, it's got to be really difficult. 649 says, an awesome interview. He says, I love you all. Hugs, Master KAOS. We shall dance Saturday.
All right.
Yeah. So it's so wonderful having these shows and getting out our point of view. And we also, this is also in the vanilla world because of the places that we are seen on. This is why we don't do nudity anymore. We're seen on Google+, we're seen on live on YouTube, live on Google+, live on TSR Network, live on FetLife, and we put a link onto Facebook and a link onto to Twitter. So a lot of people come and they watch the shows. We have, we have had over 94,000 people watch the show since we relaunched. That's not bad.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. And I think it's absolutely awesome. Charles Allegra says, there are people who are looking for something more ongoing, less casual, who want S&M play but want to keep it, I can't say that word, egalitarian?
I can't see it, so.
And without any sort of DS structure. Steve Bluefield 5 can't fucking read. It isn't always the person that's typing. It's sometimes a reader. So let's get to some of the final questions that I want to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell somebody that was brand new that came into the lifestyle? And we've got to make this kind of short. We're going on almost a half an hour later. I want to finish this about 9:30. So. All right. What would you tell somebody that was brand new in the lifestyle? What would be the one or two things that you would tell them?
The first thing I do is ask them about them and just kind of listen. That's usually the number one thing because usually they're really excited and they want to tell you everything that they're excited about. And let them get that out first, because otherwise they're not going to listen. First seek to understand, and then be understood. After they get that out, and you find out where they're at and what their thinking is, the next thing I usually do is if there's any real major red flags that pop up in there, like they aren't thinking clearly or they're not doing something right, I'll address that. But if that's not the case, I'll usually just talk with them about my experience, tell them about the wiki, point them in the direction of the 101 and the FAQ courses, because those are designed specifically to help people that are new get involved in the lifestyle. It gives them all of the resources they need to become very quickly involved and very well informed in a very short amount of time, pending them actually going through and reading the articles. And that's usually where I send people now, and that was part of the reason why I put it together, was because I was seeing that there wasn't a really good condensed version of this that kind of got those things across to people quickly.
Sorry, I'm laughing.
That's all right.
Charles in Allegra said, ready for this? Remember the word I cannot pronounce? They broke it up for me.
Yeah. Egalitarian. That's what they're trying to say. Egalitarian.
Egalitarian. That's hysterical. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I love them. Justin says, good. I'm getting laid as we speak. Pussy and Rev Mel is Monday. Monday must-see days. So he's nice. Are you fantasizing about me? Justin, oh, that's right, I was supposed to call you. in between. I'll call you after the show. Yeah, you fantasize. Are you gonna owe me $50?
You gotta get that face you just made on a poster. That was great.
Oh, I know. When I'm in person when we're in the studio and I'm with a guest and
Yep.
talking, the faces that I make. I mean, my cameraman used to get all my faces all the time, and the audience would go, "Oh, I know that face." Yeah,
Yeah.
all the people that watch the shows. But any regrets?
Regrets. That I didn't get involved in the public community sooner. It's been a wild ride, and I've been learning a lot. I wish I could have done that. I mean, it's not a regret so much as a, kind of like, I kind of pined for that, but there's nothing I really could have done to get involved any sooner. It happened at the right time. I was ready for it, and it wouldn't have happened any sooner. But if I could shift reality so that it made more sense to get involved earlier, I would have.
Wonderful. And where can people get a hold of you once again?
Well, I'm on FetLife as Master KAOS, MasterKAOS, and that's also MasterKAOSonline.com is my personal website, as well as the BDSMWiki.info is great information for lots of people that might want to learn for free quickly and get a lot of good information. I strongly recommend it to anybody who's new, or if you have a friend that's new and you want to kind of give them a good resource to get started. And it's also got information there too for a little bit more of the veteran type people that want to learn about what is the safety involved with needles or fire or electricity, etc., and learn some of the more niche stuff. But I find that the most people that go there are usually looking at the articles that are for newbies. That's usually the people that are hungriest for knowledge.
Okay, Charles Allegros has written, I don't know if it's both of you guys writing or just one of you. I don't know if it's Charles or Allegra. I started with so many different things to draw from. No mentors, no community. Funny thing is, S&M porn was actually much more realistic and reflected of the scene than what is made out on the last 10 years or so. So I go back then, porn was actually modestly informative. Not anymore, though, really. I like that. I like that. Any last comments from the peanut gallery that are watching the show that are in the chat room? I love my peanut gallery. I love it. 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 Sorry. Waiting to see if they're going to say anything else.
That's all right.
What? So tell me one secret about you that people don't know.
One secret that people don't know. I'm very public. I share a lot of information, so I couldn't even begin to fathom what people don't know. There's nothing that's really private about me. I'm actually, if you Google my name, I come up all over the place. My legal name is Clock Chaos, and I'm all over the internet doing all kinds of stuff. And it's all out there. But I guess if I wanted to say something that would be less known, they're really simple things for the most part, like I'm not into sports. That's like a personal benefit. I've never been into watching sports. I can't. When I go to a football party, I'm talking the whole game to somebody else in the other room. I can't get involved in it. Don't get me wrong, I will play a sport with friends and be active and involved. I don't get any joy out of watching a team succeed that I have no investment in. I don't understand how people associate with that, and it's fine that they do. It's not for me. So I guess that's one little factoid about me that is maybe not that well known unless somebody knows me personally.
So you're not a big sports person, which is kind of cool. I like that. So people have been chatting in the chat room. There's someone that's in the chat room that I did not see, and I want to put a shout out to Steve the Elf, or Stevie the Elf. Welcome.
Oh, she's a wonderful girl.
Said, wonderful show tonight. Thank you for the entertainment, Master KAOS. Charles Allegra says, Charles Allegra is sitting next to me. Mad April says, from Southern Belle, you saved my life. Charles Allegra says, I think it's because they were sexual restrictions back then. We're still talking about the porn. So actually, they had to focus on the S&M more. Ashley Rains said, finally caught your show, Rev Mel. Good interview. There's bubble wrap in your future. If anybody saw the show last Tuesday, if you have not seen Naughty and Nice with Miss Cassie, especially last Tuesday, It was the wackiest, craziest show. I mean, absolutely crazy show. It was crazy. So I think that's about it. We're pretty much out of time. But we could go on for all night forever.
I
But
could. Yeah, I love hanging out with you. This is great.
you're going to come back, right?
I hope so. Whenever you want to have me, let me know, and we'll make it we'll make it a plan.
So I'm going to ask him something publicly. You guys ready for this? So, would you give me permission to put a link onto TSR Network to BDSM Wiki?
I would absolutely love if you did that, because I think it would be great for a lot of new people to be able to do that. And I'm also working right now. I haven't finished it yet, but to make sure that there's a spot in the informational section. I do a lot of various different networking through the wiki, which kind of gives people resources. And I've already started a TSR Network page to get that all set up.
You're welcome to copy any of the shows and put the whole. You're welcome. I have a funny feeling you feel the same way about BDSM Wiki, that it saves lives.
Yeah.
My network doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the community.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I've always felt that way. You can see my hair starting to droop. It's getting hot in here. But I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show. This has been a pleasure.
It was for me, too. I've been having a great time. Thanks.
I'm going to seize the camera, and I want to thank you. Don't hang up, but don't you hang up. But I want to say goodbye to our guest. I'm saying goodbye to our guest now. Fix that here. I want to say goodbye to our chat room. I want to put out a thing too. I want to say thank you to Justin. Thank you to Bluefield 5, Charles Allegra, 870. Stevie the Elf. Oh, Tribal Puppy was in here. So it says made it. So Tribal Puppy has just walked in. Tribal Puppy, you're going to be able to click on the show, and you're going to be able to watch the whole thing. You can still stay in the chat room if you want to. You guys can still mingle. This chat room is open and free for anybody at any time. It's something you need to understand. You don't have to only go to the chat room during the shows. If you want to have a conversation or hold a munch in the chat room, go right ahead. Use it. Have a great time. I mean, TSR Network is for everybody. If you want to take any of the links for the shows and put them on your websites, put them on your profile, put them anywhere, please be free to do that, especially if you like an interview that you see and that you support, just like the interview that we just did was with Master KAOS. It was a great interview. We learned a lot, and you're welcome to do whatever you want. See if anybody else is coming. Nope, I moved the thing over. But I want to thank you all for watching TSRnetwork.com, where real people talk about real sex with real kinky people. And it's where we are changing the world one vanilla at a time. Thank you, guys.